Thank you very much, and welcome to this closing session. Very, very interested. I'm very honored to be here, and I'm really looking forward. Hello, Jeremy. Thank you for connecting with us. How's it going?
Doing okay, thank you. Getting a little better. I wish I was with you today.
Great, fantastic. So we have a very interesting topic this afternoon, I think, to close up in one of the most known sustainable mountain tourism destinations of the world, which is Andorra. And the title of our session today is Consumers' Call for Responsible Tourism Destinations. So, Lee, you come all the way from Australia. Right, and we were just talking during lunch, and Lee was telling me that now you're embarking in a series of long travels after this, right?
Yeah, it's exciting. Yeah, it's my first time out in 2 years, so I've escaped Fortress Australia, and it's very nice to be back on the road again, seeing everyone.
It's fantastic. So, Lee, you're the corporate communications manager of Intrepid Travel. And Intrepid Travel was created in Australia. You were just telling me. When exactly was it created?
About 35 years ago now. So 2 Aussie blokes got a garbage truck and drove it across Africa, and they thought they could make a buck from it. And now it's the world's largest adventure travel company. So it's come a long way pretty quickly.
And what is very interesting about your bio, which I was told I should be reading out, but I'm always allergic to reading out. You were Chief Purpose Officer in 2019 before becoming actually Chief of Corporate Communication and Customers. What's purpose? That's interesting.
Yeah, Intrepid likes changing the words and names of stuff, but essentially the purpose meant that Intrepid was doing everything it could to ensure there was a healthy planet, that people wanted to work with us, that people wanted to travel with us, and the communities and places we went wanted us there as a tourism organisation. So my job really was taking the idea of sustainability and putting it into practice every day within the organisation. So I was pretty privileged and lucky to have that job, and did a lot of work around reconciliation with Australians, First Nations, climate, diversity and inclusion.
Fantastic. And also, Intrepid is responsible for publishing adventure.com.
Correct.
Right, and how is that going as a publication?
Yeah, so adventure.com is a platform, hopefully if everyone wants to go and have a look at it, but it's a platform for telling the stories that aren't necessarily being told in the mainstream tourism publications, giving a voice for people in destinations, so not always from the lens of the tourist going into a destination, but having those stories from actual people on the ground, what's happening, and giving a mouthpiece or an opportunity for some of those stories that don't get into the bigger publications.
Fantastic. So I've been told you have a presentation to share with us?
Yeah, can I get up and have a chat?
Absolutely. We're
right,
looking
cool.
forward for that.
I've got to keep moving just because I'm a larger guy and I like to get around and have a walk. Hopefully my presentation's going to come up. I'll cut the intro out because you've already done such a great job introducing me. You guys will probably notice from my incredibly thick accent that I'm from Australia. So I do apologise already if you can't understand anything I say. So if there's anything you don't understand, just raise your hand for me and I can try and explain it as best I can. Now, as I said before, it's actually the first time I've been out of the country in almost 700 days. This is my first in-person conference in 2 years. So it's really great to be back amongst people again. But I'm also a little bit nervous because I haven't done it in so long. So if you notice me not hitting all of my cues, again, give me a help out because it's been a while. So, to kick off the conversation today, I'd like to begin with acknowledging the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and their continuing connection to land, waters and community. Now I live in Footscray in Maribyrnong, and that's the peoples of the Kulin Nation. Maribyrnong actually means tail of possum, and I pay my respects to their cultures, their elders, past, present and future. In Australia, it is customary to start important meetings and events with the acknowledgement of country. It shows respect for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and it's something that I would have done at home, and I think it's important to share with you here today. So, for those of you who are like, who the heck is Intrepid Travel? We're the world's largest adventure travel company. We've been taking people the local way on real-life experiences that give back to places and people for over 30 years. We create positive change through the absolute joy of travel. Now, we offer trips to we have over 900 different itineraries in 90 countries across the globe, from Antarctica to Vietnam to Morocco and everywhere in between. Now, our goal is quite lofty. We don't want to be the best travel company in the world. We want to be the best travel company for the world. Okay, so as you all know, COVID brought the world and the travel industry to a halt. On March 10, 2020, I was sitting at the home of our CEO in a suburb of Melbourne. A group of us gathered around the kitchen table to discuss the pandemic that was rapidly being declared across the world. That day, we announced that we would cease global operations for the first time in our history. Every trip, every tour leader, every traveller. Over 1,000 itineraries in 100 countries in all 7 continents grounded. Now, you don't need me to tell you about the impacts of COVID, but it was pretty savage and brutal for a tour operator, and it was devastating for everyone probably in this room. But in life, you can't always control what happens to you, but you can always control how you respond. And as the world's largest adventure tour travel company, a certified B Corp, and a pioneer in sustainable travel for over 30 years, we chose to use the time to rethink about how we could rebuild our company better. Our response was a public commitment to our staff, customers, and partners to rebuild responsibly. Now, what it means to rebuild responsibly will look different for everyone in this room. And why you'd want to do that will also be different. For mountain operators, your why is likely the preservation of your climate that your mountains depend on. For others, it's the ocean. And likely for all of us, it's the communities that we operate in. Okay, so let's talk about the first reason why now is the time for action on sustainability. The stark and scary reality is that beyond the COVID-19 pandemic, there is actually an even greater threat looming to the viability of our industry, and that is the global climate crisis. Every tourism operator relies on the planet and its people and communities for its product. Prior to the pandemic, the global tourism industry accounted for roughly 8% of the world's carbon emissions. Despite what we know, the world and our industry is not responding fast enough to climate change. It's clear that we must come together to limit global warming in line with a 1.5 degree future, halve emissions by 2030, and reach net zero emissions as soon as possible before 2050. The coral reefs, the mountains, the wildlife, our oceans, and our beaches, the very planet that forms the foundation of our adventures. To put it simply, there's no tourism industry without a healthy planet. Climate change is real. It started as a concern and has now become a crisis. Now, everyone in this room has a role to play, and I think that's one of the things hopefully you walk away from hearing me speak today, is that everyone has a role, and if we start, we're going to be able to make serious progress. Now, I'm going to quickly give you 5 things that you can do straight away as soon as you leave this room. Jeremy, I hope I'm not stealing some of your thunder, because I am going to talk about tourism declares a climate emergency. So 1, you can leave straight today and sign the Glasgow Declaration on Climate Activation in Tourism. You'll join hundreds of travel organisations who have signed up, the first time our industry has come together around a global approach to climate change. You can download our 10-step guide to decarbonise your travel business. This provides a high-level, quick overview of what decarbonisation is about and what it looks like in your organisation. You can publicly declare a climate emergency and adopt a carbon reduction plan. 4, you can measure your emissions. And 5, hire someone in your organisation to take care of the planet, an environmental consultant. So, if the preservation of our planet isn't enough reason to take action on climate, the other critically important one is the future of the business's commercial aspects is also at stake. The customers of today and tomorrow increasingly are putting purpose and sustainability and responsible travel at the top of their list when it comes to choosing a product to buy, trips to book, and brands to support. Now, a recent survey by Booking.com, which surveyed almost 30,000 travellers from 30 different countries, made a couple of really stark realisations. 83% of global travellers think sustainable travel is absolutely vital. 61% saying the pandemic has made them want to travel more sustainably in the future. And yet half still believe that in 2021, there are not enough sustainable options. So to reiterate, 83% of our addressable or your addressable market is saying that sustainable travel is vital. Over 60% said they want to travel more in the future. And nothing about the state of the world would indicate that these numbers will go anywhere but up, especially with younger generations who are very aware about climate change. It's only a matter of time before 100% of global travellers think sustainable travel is vital, and those who have done the work will be the ones that reap the benefits. And it's not only your customers either. Your industry partners, your potential future investors are also increasingly concerned with how businesses operate and what impact it has on the planet. If customers are starting to ask questions, so are your future investors and partners. So hopefully I've given you a good explanation of the why sustainability matters. Obviously it's for our planet and the profit of our organisations. Now hopefully I'm going to critically look at the how. How do you start to create change? Now at Intrepid Travel, we've always taken the approach of cleaning the house before inviting people to the party. We have a long history of prioritising work over the words. We were one of the first two operators to build a responsible business department within the business in 1996. We've been carbon neutral for nearly 12 years, and we spent over 3 years working towards B Corp certification in 2018. And in 2020, we became the first and only tour operator in the world with verified science-based climate targets. Now, we've done this in a variety of ways. It doesn't hurt that our co-founders set out to create a business that gave back to people and the places we visit. So we have this very much in the DNA. The values of our business are built into what we do every day. Now, I'm going to use a couple other examples here that aren't just about carbon or climate change. Sustainability can mean lots of different things to lots of different people, and I think it's really important to reiterate that it's not just about climate change. Now, I come from Australia, and in other parts of the world, we're seeing climate justice and social justice intersect. Now, Indigenous peoples haven't caused the problem, but they're living with the consequences. So I'd encourage everyone to look at their sustainability plan to understand what they can do from a social justice point of view. In Australia, we developed a reconciliation action plan, which is a framework for developing stronger relationships with First Nations Australians. And it's important that we're able to lift them up to ensure that they're not more disproportionately affected by the effects of climate change. The other one's transparency. As I mentioned, Intrepid was founded with very strong values, and it's helped shape our journey over the past 3 decades. Our co-founders have always been transparent, and that really helps create trust with our people and also our customers and our partners. When we don't get something right, we try our best to admit it and be public about it and do better. That's why we decided to become a B Corp, and in 2018, we became the world's largest tour B Corp. That means we're part of a global community of 4,000 businesses who have the highest verified environmental and social standards. Being a B Corp signals to our customers and also to our staff and the industry we're serious about doing the right thing. Now in travel, there are literally hundreds of certifications. It's quite hard in our sector to not fall victim to greenwashing. So I encourage everyone to do your homework, find one that is really the best for you and what you want to achieve. Only 2 more slides. I promised you 7. I think I made a mistake. There's 8. So if I'm going too long, just wave your hands. And I'm good to sit down. For most people in this room today, the single most influential path you have to decarbonising your business is through your products, your trips, and your experiences. The problem is that most people are trying to reduce emissions without knowing how to do it or what their base is. You can't reduce what you don't know. You need a baseline for how much carbon your trips contribute to the world in order to start reducing. Now here again are 3 things that you can start to do today. 1, measure your trips, measure your offices, measure your business. We measured our emissions for all of our business using, sorry, I'll start again. For our offices, we've measured, and that means we're now moving to 100% renewable energy by 2025. With trips, we measure our emissions every single trip that we go on, every day, every hotel, everything that goes on the trip, make sure we measure and understand it. This helps us understand where we're starting from, what kind of trips account for the most of emissions, and how we go about reducing those. So 1, measure your impact. 2, reduce. In your existing trips, products and experiences, look for ways to reduce emissions. This includes reviewing your most popular trips, experiences, and removing carbon-intensive components. Now, we've been removing flights from our business, and this year we've removed flights from about 5 of our best-selling trips, which has resulted in about 3,000 less flights every year. And then finally, I recommend you offset. Now, I know that this isn't the absolute long-term solution, but in some regards, it's the best thing we can do now. So go away and take those 3 things and put them into place today. Okay, I think I managed to get one awkward picture of me there in Myanmar. I apologise that I'm up there as well. So in summary, what we're faced with today is a decision on a world we want to live in and the travel industry we want to create. So what is the industry you should be aspiring for on the other side of this crisis? As an industry, we should start by using this time as a rare chance to think about how we travel and how we can aim to be more ethical and sustainable travellers and global citizens into the future. The future of travel should be regenerative, responsible, ethical, and sustainable for all. We must work together to create lighter footprints, invest our travel dollars in local communities, show respect and curiosity for different cultures and traditions, and experience genuine connections with people we meet along the way. Find your why, figure out how, and together we'll build a responsible and climate-safe future for travel. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Lee. Thank you as well for mentioning the Glasgow Declaration, which is, of course, a project which is very dear to us, and we have to definitely look at it the angle where climate change it has to, cover responsibility from the tourism sector as a whole. The problem sometimes we have is that it's really difficult to create the boundaries of the tourism sector because it's so large and horizontal. And there's always a question, are we including transport in the tourism sector? Is transport a standalone? In reality, it's always a good excuse to remind everyone that, we generate carbon and we have to look at carbon neutrality as an objective. Thank you so much. I'm a little bit upset because you stole many of my lines, like be the change and, this, but I get that word is your thing, so thank you for that. Now, what's interesting, that you are also responsible, or you worked in Toronto, Canada, and you were just telling us that you were going to fly now to Toronto just because you want to stretch out and make sure you cover the whole world all the way from Australia to Toronto, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that brings me over to Marc Pons. We returned back to beautiful Andorra, but Marc, it looks like I was reading your CV. I'm actually absolutely impressed, a little bit intimidated, I have to say, but that you are... basically, you worked in many things regarding sustainability, but from the engineering perspective. And I absolutely adore the idea that you had a doctorate in sustainability, science and technology for the Barcelona Tech and the McGill University in Montreal. That's where I got the Canada connection, by the way. Have you been in Canada? I mean, did you conclude your PhD in Canada?
Yes, I
You
did
did.
half of my PhD there, and I stayed for a while, just working exactly about mixing, these different dimensions that usually don't mix of innovation and technology with sustainability, and how this could be a driver or an enabler to this transition to sustainability.
That is amazing. And how does it feel to be back to Andorra? I mean, I believe you come from here, no?
Yeah.
Which parroquia? Right, Ministro?
Ordino.
Ordino. Oh, wow. It's very strange you're not from Encam, no? One who's not from Encam. Great. So Ordino, the main ski probably resort at the moment. I mean, probably one of the most well-known, and now Minister will kill me because I didn't mention Encam properly.
Yeah.
No,
in fact, it was the skiing, the adaptation of the
Yes.
ski industry that bring me to
Yes.
this topic, because as you
Yes.
know, here is is one of the main challenges that we have, how we adapt the skiing industry to the new challenges that we have ahead.
Exactly, so I guess you're going to lead us into this with your presentation, yeah?
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you very much. So please, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Okay. So it's here. Okay. So good afternoon, bona tarda a tothom. Well, hem vist al llarg d'aquests 2 dies doncs, que els reptes de les destinacions en muntanya enfront la transició cap al turisme sostenible són diversos, han anat sortint al llarg de les diferents sessions, hem vist com el canvi climàtic és un d'aquests reptes que tenim, la massificació amb destinacions en muntanya i la pressió, discutíem abans durant el dinar, hem de posar una capacitat de càrrega a les destinacions en muntanya, no l'hem de posar, la descarbonització d'aquestes destinacions a nivell d'eficiència energètica, mobilitat, etc. La digitalització, que en el nostre cas, o en moltes destinacions, és fins i tot un repte, a nivell de bretxa digital, etc. i amb altres és realment una oportunitat, justament com dèiem ara, per aquesta transició cap a un futur més sostenible i com justament el post-Covid, l'entorn, la situació post-Covid ha accelerat moltes d'elles. Una mica ho hem vist, la massificació per l'atractivitat de les zones de muntanya, les zones naturals després de la situació del Covid o la digitalització global. Diuen que en 7 anys hem fet un pas endavant a nivell de digitalització només en un any o en uns mesos amb el post-Covid. Doncs com tots aquests reptes són una necessitat que tenim que afrontar en el futur i com molts d'ells són, de fet, requereixen de canvis estructurals. Molts estan basats o venen provocats per una inèrcia a nivell dels patrons de mobilitat, a nivell dels patrons de consum, que són difícils de canviar de forma dràstica i realment estem parlant de la necessitat d'uns canvis bastant estructurals, tant a nivell públic, a nivell privat, a nivell de comportament de l'usuari, del client, del consumidor, que no són evidents a l'hora d'abordar-los. Això ens porta a tota una sèrie d'accions claus que en els propers anys s'han de començar a incorporar i ja s'estan, de fet, començant a incorporar. De fet, fins ara estàvem parlant de sostenibilitat més com un aspecte de responsabilitat social corporativa, de compromís i no de necessitat, i ara cada cop estem més en un punt que la sostenibilitat és un must, és un element clau a l'hora de contemplar qualsevol aspecte de qualsevol índole. D'aquí una mica hem parlat també, o sortirà més endavant, la necessitat d'abordar de forma integral les destinacions de muntanya, no només des del punt de vista turístic, sinó des del punt de vista un lloc on viure. I tenim clars exemples recentment, que tenim, o cada cop estem veient destinacions turístiques molt atractives, molt competitives, però que justament per aquesta dificultat de conjugar el que és un espai per viure, un espai destinat al turisme, porta dificultats d'accés a l'habitatge, del cost de la vida, etc. Llavors aquí és una necessitat que veiem que en els propers anys, o ja en el dia d'avui, la necessitat d'aquest abordar de forma integral les destinacions de muntanya, no només des del punt de vista turístic, sinó des del punt de vista de zones per viure. Ho hem dit, el canvi climàtic, ha sortit de forma recurrent, ahir va ser un dels temes rellevants i és el que dèiem, el canvi climàtic, és a dir, l'adaptació i la mitigació del canvi climàtic ha de ser un aspecte inherent ja a qualsevol política pública, qualsevol inversió privada, ha de ser un aspecte clau a tindre interioritzat. Després, aquesta acció col·lectiva per reduir l'impacte ambiental. Hem parlat de la necessitat de transició al model de mobilitat, de reducció del consum d'aigua, un model urbanístic més sostenible i tot el tema de conjugat amb la necessitat de preservar la biodiversitat. Tots aquests punts, com hem dit, veieu, són temes molt amplis, temes que els està abordant el sector privat, temes que els està abordant el sector públic, temes que s'està tractant des del punt de vista de la recerca, però realment veiem que hi ha un nivell molt alt de consciència actualment, veiem que des de la societat, el sector privat, el sector públic, veiem que és una prioritat. Per contra, estem veient que el nivell d'acció, el nivell de reacció, encara és molt lent. I com és? Què està passant? Perquè hi hagi un nivell tan alt de conscienciació i un nivell, diguéssim, tan baix de reacció, de capacitat a actuar. Estem veient que són problemes complexos, multidimensionals, i d'aquí la necessitat, veiem que en els propers anys, la necessitat de co-crear aquestes solucions de forma conjunta, sí o sí, entre aquestes diferents dimensions. D'aquí una mica, des del punt de vista del que vinc jo, vinc un pel més del món acadèmic, del món de la innovació, de la necessitat de trobar marcs de treball, doncs sempre es diu que el món de la recerca, el món de la innovació ha estat una mica a la seva torre de marfil, desconnectat més de lo que és la realitat del sector privat, i cada cop més és més necessari entorns, frameworks, que justament busquin aquests espais de co-creació conjunta entre administració, sector privat i ciutadania. Per posar-vos alguns exemples, doncs ha sortit molt, una mica la viabilitat del sector de l'esquí, el canvi climàtic, tothom és conscient que el canvi climàtic afectarà les estacions d'esquí, que hi haurà segurament una afectació negativa. Després, quan tu trasllades aquests discursos amb algun actor, pots trobar situacions com aquesta. Per exemple, freqüentació d'esquiadors a una estació d'esquí, i tu li estàs dient un discurs que amb el canvi climàtic cada cop hi haurà menys esquiadors, més dificultats d'allò, i trobes una situació com Arcalís, on un any amb pobres condicions de neu, post no conditions, i un altre amb bones condicions de neu, la situació és oposada. Problema complex. És a dir, les mateixes receptes que estem dient pel canvi climàtic i per l'adaptació són bones a uns entorns que l'altres? No. Aquest és un clar exemple de la necessitat de treballar amb aquesta multidimensionalitat de forma conjunta i que estem parlant de problemes que realment són complexos i que receptes generals són totalment inassumibles. Un exemple d'un projecte de com ho hem abordat, tornant a Toronto o a Canadà. Aquest és un projecte que vam fer amb 35 estacions d'esquí de Canadà, on ens vam posar a treballar de forma conjunta estacions d'esquí, sector públic, sector privat, investigadors i ciutadans. I d'aquesta forma el que vam buscar aquí és posar tot aquest coneixement i aquest treball en conjunt amb aquestes diferents dimensions i intentar entendre quina és la projecció futura del sector, no només des del punt de vista purament climàtic i des del punt de vista purament local o regional, sinó amb aquesta visió, diguéssim, més holística. Un clar exemple, doncs sovint dient el canvi climàtic farà una reducció del mercat o perdrem tants dies d'esquí i tants nombres d'esquiadors. Doncs, per exemple, treballant amb els usuaris, amb els consumidors, preguntant als consumidors, ens deien que només un 5% pararia d'esquiar si la seva estació més habitual estigués tancada. El 95% farien el que es diu una substitució espacial o temporal, és a dir, o buscarien una estació propera amb millors condicions de neu o buscarien esquiar més habitualment a una altra estació d'esquí. Aquest aspecte no aparent i que no s'ha trobat fins que no parles amb el consumidor o inclous la veu del consumidor a l'equació, no t'explica situacions com la que hem vist abans amb el cas d'Arcalís. Bé, una mica amb aquestes necessitats, com ho estem treballant a Andorra o com estem abordant aquesta necessitat de cocreació a Andorra? Doncs barrejant dos marcs de treball. Una mica aquí hem escollit, per una banda, el marc de treball de les reserves de la biosfera, és a dir, la reserva biosfera sovint s'associa o mentalment a una figura de protecció, no és una figura de protecció natural, com pot ser les reserves de protecció natural de la UNESCO, etc., sinó és un marc de treball de consens territorial entre els diferents actors cap al compromís del desenvolupament sostenible. Doncs hem començat a treballar, ja ha sortit, crec que s'ha comentat durant aquest això, amb el cas Ordino. Ordino és reserva de la biosfera, i s'està treballant en aquest principi, i al costat ja estem ajuntant el concepte o el framework dels Living Labs. Què és el framework dels Living Labs? No res més que el concepte típic d'innovació de fail fast and cheap, és a dir, troba entorns de forma col·laborativa entre els usuaris, sector privat, sector públic i món de la recerca per testejar, prototipar de forma molt ràpida solucions als reptes que abans hem vist. Doncs una mica aquest és l'objectiu que estem treballant des d'aquí a Andorra, a conjuntar una mica aquests dos marcs de treball, justament per de forma conjunta sector privat, sector públic, societat i món de la recerca, intentar afrontar els reptes de futur que tenim cap al turisme sostenible a Andorra. Posaré un petit vídeo, no sé si va l'àudio.
Living Lab,
Torno.
a unique testing environment in an innovative country. Andorra Living Lab is an environment for coordination, research, design and validation of innovation projects in which users become active actors and develop solutions through their reflections on new ideas that are being generated. Andorra Living Lab is an open innovation ecosystem based on the quadruple helix framework in which companies, public authorities, academics and citizens work together to create, prototype, validate and test new solutions to actual challenges, always considering the user as the focus of the proposals. At Andorra Living Lab, we know that innovation, technology and digital transformation are, and will increasingly be, one of the essential elements to impulse all areas of our society, but with particular relevance in the entrepreneurial sector and the talent of Andorra. The Andorra Living Lab connects the strengths and opportunities that Andorra offers and brings it closer to the entrepreneurial ecosystem in order to promote agile networks for the development of pilot testing as a result of the quick access to the end user, a regulation that facilitates innovation and the proximity between relevant participants, in addition to the transversal support of both the public and private sector. At Andorra Living Lab, you will be able to co-create together with other users new designs, pilots or MVPs, promoting the use of shared resources, explore and discover new applications, products, trends and emerging market opportunities through the implementation of continuous innovation processes. You will be able to experiment, prototype and test live new scenarios and realities, optimizing interactive test and error processes using methodologies considered to be the most suitable to promote innovation. Connected value chains are built that allow evaluation based on objective socioeconomic criteria, minimizing time and reducing the resources needed to reach the market. Andorra's innovation strategy promotes the development of some strategic sectors, so that we also prioritize them from the Andorra Living Lab in order to join efforts together. Sustainability, mountain, sport, health and wellness, education. The purpose of the Andorra Living Lab is to work in line with the National Strategic Plan for the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development of the United Nations. Can you imagine testing your innovations in an agile way in an open environment? Don't imagine it and join our innovation ecosystem.
I ja només per acabar, i per ensenyar-vos, per exemple, un exemple de com ja estem portant a la realitat, doncs això és un projecte amb el que s'està treballant conjuntament, per exemple, Gran Valira, Palarinsal, diferents comuns i diferents investigadors i algunes startups del país, per exemple, per desenvolupar solucions tècniques, o estar una mica aprofitant la punta de la llança amb noves tecnologies, per exemple, per treballar una mica tota la gestió eficient de la neu, la gestió energètica, els canons de neu, etc., per trobar solucions ad hoc, i no solucions ad hoc al mercat que les llancem al mercat, per exemple aquesta mateixa ja està creada una petita spin-off que estarà produint i exportant aquestes solucions, sinó amb aquesta hèlix, amb aquest loop de cocreació conjunta, anar treballant de forma cooperativa els quatre actors que dèiem, la quàdruple hèlix aquesta, per anar treballant aquests reptes de forma conjunta i anar intentant trobar solucions a aquestes necessitats que tenim de futur. Bé, moltes gràcies.
Wow, Mark, that was a lot, really. Thank you so much. I would like to draw upon the idea of governance, which becomes really crucial. And you're offering definitely solutions which, as you were saying, Andorra offers solutions that go from the actual providers to the consumers, and the consumer is the protagonist. When it comes to governance, as I was sharing, I personally have a strong admiration for France in the way that they've been approaching throughout the years, for example, the promotion of destinations or the management as well of certain actions regarding the promotion of destinations. And I'm very happy that you're here with us, Domitien, because you are actually the Director General of the Pyrenees agencies, and you were nominated during COVID. So this is very interesting. I would like to drop this, for further discussion. I mean, COVID of course, has brought an immense disruption to the tourism sector, and not only to our lives, all right? But it's brought in some elements that definitely has forced, especially the decision makers, to look at in a more, like in a closer way. And one of these elements is precisely management and governance. It was mentioned also, management of how do we approach that? And so in this sense, please tell us a little bit more about your strategy. And I want to know as well, what did you feel and how did you get your job precisely during COVID? It would be interesting. Thank you so much. Of course, Domitian is going to speak in French.
Merci. Effectivement, je vais parler en français. Merci de cette invitation. Merci au gouvernement d'Andorre, à Monsieur le ministre du Tourisme et des Télécommunications, puisque cette participation de l'Agence des Pyrénées fait suite à une rencontre qui a eu lieu à Toulouse avec la région Occitanie et l'Agence des Pyrénées au mois de janvier. Alors, je vais peut-être me lever et récupérer la manette. Marc, elle est là-bas. Merci, pardon. Alors, je vous remercie de cet accueil favorable aux Français, parce que d'habitude, on a plutôt un complexe d'infériorité, les Français, en disant qu'on est un millefeuille administratif, que c'est compliqué de s'y retrouver dans nos sphères décisionnelles. Et l'Agence des Pyrénées, que je représente et dont je vais vous dire 2 mots, essaye de se frayer un chemin dans cette complexité pour se saisir des bons sujets. Alors, un mot peut-être pour dire ce qu'est l'Agence des Pyrénées. Alors, c'est traduit en espagnol parce qu'on a eu on a l'habitude de s'adresser à des collègues de l'autre côté de la frontière. C'est la seule slide qui sera traduite en espagnol et je m'en excuse. En fait, l'Agence des Pyrénées, donc c'est une agence des pouvoirs publics, des collectivités locales françaises au niveau des Pyrénées. Donc les Pyrénées en France, comme côté espagnol et andorran, ça va des Pyrénées Atlantiques, c'est-à-dire d'Hendaye jusqu'à Banyuls. C'est côté français 6 départements, 2 régions, et c'est à peu près 500 000 habitants. Et donc l'Agence des Pyrénées, elle a été créée au début de l'année 2021 par volonté d'essayer de développer une approche à 360 degrés sur les problématiques de développement territorial du massif des Pyrénées. Jusque-là, la région Occitanie et la région Nouvelle-Aquitaine, qui concerne donc la partie béarnaise et basque du massif, soutenaient toutes les deux des acteurs qui œuvraient au développement des Pyrénées, mais chacun dans des couloirs sectoriels un peu précis. Il y avait la Confédération pyrénéenne du tourisme, dont le métier était la promotion des 38 stations de montagne des Pyrénées françaises. Il faut savoir qu'au départ, cette Confédération pyrénéenne du tourisme, elle avait été créée en 1918, il y a plus d'1 siècle, pour promouvoir la route thermale des Pyrénées. Elle a changé d'objet puisque le moteur du tourisme pyrénéen n'est plus le thermalisme depuis un certain nombre d'années, on peut le regretter, et est devenu le ski et les stations de montagne. Donc la Confédération pyrénéenne du tourisme d'une part. Autre outil fusionné dans l'Agence des Pyrénées, l'ADEPFO, qui est un organisme qui proposait de l'ingénierie et de l'accompagnement de projets à des projets créateurs de développement local dans le massif des Pyrénées. Concrètement, 50 projets par an environ sont accompagnés dans toutes les vallées françaises des Pyrénées, dans des domaines de l'agriculture et de l'alimentation, dans les domaines du tourisme durable et beaucoup de thématiques accompagnées dans la transition des stations de montagne. Et dernier outil fusionné dans l'Agence des Pyrénées, le CIDAP, qui travaillait sur la résorption des zones blanches de téléphonie mobile. Et on s'aperçoit qu'un des enjeux de cette fusion dans l'Agence des Pyrénées, c'était de créer des synergies entre ces 3 métiers qui étaient différents. Et ces synergies sont déjà très fortes depuis 1 an. Par exemple, sur la synergie entre tourisme et téléphonie mobile, on s'aperçoit aujourd'hui que pour réguler les flux touristiques dans les grands sites naturels, on est obligé de travailler très étroitement avec la téléphonie mobile, à la fois pour connaître les flux en temps réel et puis pour donner des informations aux usagers et aux visiteurs sur l'état de saturation de certains sites. Si vous voulez dissuader, par exemple, un visiteur de monter, quand vous êtes au massif du Néouviel, dans les Hautes-Pyrénées françaises, de monter en haut parce que les parkings sont pleins, il faut qu'il ait l'information en bas avant de faire une demi-heure de route que les parkings sont pleins. Et ça, il n'y a que les technologies de la téléphonie mobile et de la 4G qui permettent de les résoudre. Donc derrière la téléphonie mobile, il y a des enjeux de qualité de vie pour les habitants, mais aussi de gestion des politiques touristiques à l'échelle des Pyrénées. Donc au-delà de la fusion de ces 3 structures, l'Agence des Pyrénées, ses 4 missions, c'est développer, promouvoir, préserver et animer. Alors, développer, c'est l'accompagnement de projets dont je vous ai parlé, une 50aine de projets économiques accompagnés chaque année sur le massif des Pyrénées via de la mise à disposition d'ingénierie et de consultants. C'est le travail sur les grandes filières pyrénéennes, alors des filières traditionnelles comme la laine des Pyrénées, mais c'est aussi l'accompagnement de filières plus émergentes comme le vélo. Aujourd'hui, les Pyrénées françaises ont une image de marque très forte en termes de vélo liée au Tour de France. Comment est-ce qu'on arrive à créer davantage de valeur économique et touristique autour de ça? C'est un des enjeux de travail de l'Agence des Pyrénées. Deuxième axe, valoriser le massif, c'est la promotion du massif des Pyrénées françaises auprès des cibles nationales et internationales. Et donc, à titre d'exemple, nous menons régulièrement des campagnes de promotion des Pyrénées françaises auprès du public espagnol, puisque contrairement à l'Andorre, les Pyrénées françaises attirent peu de clientèle internationale, c'est à peu près 10% de notre fréquentation, et sur ces 10%, on a 8% d'Espagnols, ce qui est une faiblesse, considérée comme une faiblesse en temps normal, est devenu une force, puisque à titre d'exemple, sur la saison d'hiver qui va s'achever, les Pyrénées françaises, c'est entre plus 10 et plus 15% de chiffre d'affaires, alors que les Alpes françaises, on est autour de moins 5 à peu près, puisqu'elles sont beaucoup plus dépendantes de la clientèle internationale. Troisième, 2 fils rouges ensuite dans l'action de l'Agence des Pyrénées, la question de la préservation et de l'animation. Donc, l'animation, c'est l'idée de créer une communauté d'acteurs pyrénéens, de renforcer le sentiment d'appartenance des Pyrénéens aux Pyrénées, puisque au-delà de l'identité pyrénéenne, il y a beaucoup d'identités locales, pas beaucoup de choses communes entre les Basques, les Catalans et les Aragonais, et en même temps un destin commun qui est cette appartenance au massif des Pyrénées, sur lesquels on veut s'appuyer pour créer des dynamiques collectives. Et la question de la préservation, elle est vraiment au cœur de l'ADN de l'Agence des Pyrénées. S'il fallait résumer d'un seul mot ce qui est attendu de l'action de l'Agence des Pyrénées, c'est la capacité à promouvoir un modèle pyrénéen de gestion durable des ressources. Comment on arrive à gérer la ligne de crête entre préserver les ressources naturelles, patrimoniales des Pyrénées, et en même temps créer davantage de valeur, puisque l'enjeu qu'il y a derrière ça, c'est d'arriver à créer de l'emploi dans nos vallées, maintenir les jeunes dans les vallées pyrénéennes, attirer des nouveaux talents et créer des opportunités économiques. Pour en venir maintenant au cœur du sujet sur le tourisme durable et les attentes des consommateurs, cette question du tourisme durable, ça ne vous étonnera pas, elle est un peu au cœur de la feuille de route que nous ont confiée nos partenaires publics, notamment les 2 régions, pour plusieurs raisons. Déjà, la transition du tourisme en montagne, c'est un sujet qui occupe l'agenda politique en France, qui l'a beaucoup occupé l'année dernière. Il y a eu des états généraux nationaux autour de la transition du tourisme en montagne, et nous en avons organisé une déclinaison pyrénéenne à Foix au mois de juillet. Deuxième élément de contexte qui explique que ce sujet est au cœur de l'actualité, c'est que nous sommes chargés de l'animation du contrat de destination Pyrénées. Le contrat de destination, c'est un contrat cadre signé avec Atout France, qui est l'organisme de l'État français chargé de promouvoir la destination France. Nous avons en charge, pour le compte d'Atout France et des 2 régions, Occitanie-Nouvelle-Aquitaine, d'organiser la promotion et la structuration de l'offre touristique pyrénéenne. Et nous nous sommes accordés avec l'ensemble des acteurs du tourisme pyrénéen pour dire que notre objectif stratégique dans les 3 années à venir, c'est d'être une destination de référence en matière de tourisme respectueux des espaces et de l'environnement et de devenir le massif de montagne leader sur l'été. On n'en est pas trop loin, mais il y a encore du chemin à parcourir. En relais de ces préoccupations nationales et locales, l'Agence des Pyrénées a accompagné beaucoup de projets très concrets sur la question du tourisme durable. Je vais donner 2 exemples. Un premier exemple qui est la mise en tourisme durable de la vallée d'Eau. La vallée d'Eau, c'est la vallée qui est au-dessus de Luchon, un site touristique qui fait partie des grands sites pyrénéens, avec, comme beaucoup de grands sites, des problématiques de surfréquentation. Et donc nous accompagnons les acteurs locaux, en lien avec le parc naturel régional, à travailler à la régulation des flux. C'est un sujet très complexe parce que quand vous commencez à aborder ces sujets, vous heurtez tout de suite à des crispations des acteurs locaux qui ont toujours peur, quand on parle de réguler les flux, et notamment de réguler la place de la voiture, que ça supprime des emplois et que, in fine, on crée moins de valeur économique. Or, toutes les études montrent, en tout cas dans les Pyrénées françaises, que partout où on a régulé les flux, on a renforcé la création de valeur. Pourquoi ? Parce qu'on renforce la qualité de l'expérience visiteur et ce qui est rare et ce qui est difficile d'accès à un prix symbolique du moins plus élevé. Et donc ça a été le cas dans tous les grands sites pyrénéens. Il y en a un qui n'est pas trop loin, le lac des Bouillouzes, dans les Pyrénées-Orientales, où il y a 20 ans, tous les habitants criaient au scandale quand les flux ont été régulés l'été et qu'on ne pouvait plus monter qu'en bus. Et depuis, c'est complètement rentré dans les mœurs et c'est devenu un modèle de gestion durable d'un site. Donc nous accompagnons ces sites à mettre en place des stratégies de régulation des flux et arriver à créer de la valeur autour de ça et surtout à gérer la période de transition, comme Marc Ponce l'évoquait tout à l'heure. Autre exemple, nous allons accompagner, il y a le maire de Portet-Puymorens dans la salle et je le salue, nous allons accompagner le collectif de 3 stations des Pyrénées-Orientales dénommées Trio. C'est le regroupement de 3 petites stations qui essayent de bâtir un projet commun. C'est une démarche un peu innovante, surtout que ce sont des stations qui sont assez distantes. Nous allons les accompagner dans le positionnement de leur offre activité et dans la construction d'un projet managérial partagé entre ces 3 stations. Et puis, ce sujet du tourisme durable, il est au cœur de projets de coopération transfrontalière. Nous avons travaillé activement avec Marc Ponce et Harry ces dernières semaines pour déposer des projets auprès de la Commission européenne, tant sur le programme LIFE que sur le programme de coopération transfrontalière POCTEFA, pour essayer de travailler ensemble à la modélisation de trajectoires de transition des stations de montagne. Et moi, ce que Marc a évoqué en parlant d'approche inclusive et de Living Lab fait beaucoup écho à nos préoccupations, puisque la méthode d'accompagnement qu'on déploie toujours sur nos projets, ça n'est pas de rendre des rapports en réponse à des cahiers des charges, ça n'est pas un travail de consultant classique, c'est de travailler à des approches inclusives en mobilisant toutes les parties prenantes d'un territoire qui, au départ, ont des intérêts très différents et qui, petit à petit, cheminent vers une lecture commune du problème, identifient ensemble des solutions et tracent le chemin qui permet d'arriver aux solutions. Et sur des problématiques aussi complexes que le changement climatique en zone de montagne, nous avons la conviction que seules ces approches-là fonctionnent, et donc on est persuadé que l'apport de nos amis andorrans, espagnols, catalans pourrait être très bénéfique sur ce sujet. Quelques convictions que je voulais partager avec vous. On le disait tout à l'heure au moment du déjeuner, nous avons, tous les acteurs de tourisme réfléchissent, et les acteurs territoriaux notamment, aux démarches d'attractivité touristique. Nous avons dans les Pyrénées essayé de faire un pas de côté et de dire finalement ce qu'on a envie de proposer, ça n'est pas une démarche d'attractivité, c'est une démarche d'hospitalité. Une démarche d'hospitalité au sens un territoire qui est hospitalier pour les visiteurs qui viennent à sa rencontre, mais aussi pour ses habitants, avec derrière une conviction très forte, c'est qu'il n'y a pas de tourisme durable et de développement touristique durable sans un territoire qui soit vivant, et donc vivant et vivable pour ses habitants. Et ça rejoint une préoccupation très forte qui est qu'aujourd'hui, en tout cas on le sent fortement dans les Pyrénées, les visiteurs sont à la recherche, certes d'espaces préservés, de biodiversité, mais ils sont aussi à la recherche de territoires où il y a de la vie, où il y a des gens qui entreprennent, où il y a des gens qui essayent de se battre avec les conditions du système montagnard pour développer des trajectoires de vie, d'entrepreneuriat. Et le fait de capitaliser sur cette dimension, les Pyrénées, territoire de tourisme, mais pas uniquement, aussi et surtout territoire de vie, nous sommes persuadés que c'est un levier du développement touristique de demain. Et donc, notre capacité, quand on promeut les Pyrénées et la destination, à valoriser pas seulement des paysages, pas seulement des infrastructures touristiques, mais aussi des hommes et des femmes qui vivent dans les Pyrénées et qui construisent des trajectoires de vie, est extrêmement important. J'en veux pour preuve que à chaque fois qu'on fait de la promotion sur les réseaux sociaux des Pyrénées, quand on met une photo de remontée mécanique ou de descente en snowboard, on a quelques likes. Quand on met une vidéo d'un berger qui explique son métier, tout de suite, ça diffuse de manière extrêmement virale. Ça montre bien que les gens sont en recherche de ce type d'expérience. Et donc, un fil rouge autour de ça, qui guide un peu notre stratégie, c'est le fait de dire, aujourd'hui, les zones de montagne en général, et les Pyrénées en particulier, Là où elles peuvent se démarquer touristiquement, c'est en étant des territoires d'aboutissement. Alors aboutissement d'un point de vue géographique, puisque quand on va en montagne, on va souvent au bout d'une vallée, on va souvent gravir des sommets et on en redescend ensuite, donc on va au bout du monde en quelque sorte, mais c'est aussi un aboutissement d'un point de vue plus symbolique, c'est dans les territoires de montagne qu'on peut revenir à l'essentiel, réaborder une autre relation à la nature, une autre relation au système alimentaire et à l'alimentation, une autre relation aux hommes et aux femmes et à ses pairs. Et on est convaincu qu'autour de cette idée-là, il y a des stratégies de promotion et d'hospitalité touristique à construire. Alors en conclusion, quelques défis pour les acteurs du tourisme associés à ces convictions. La première, c'est qu'il est important que les acteurs publics et les acteurs privés travaillent ensemble à la diffusion et à la régulation des flux. On l'évoquait aussi tout à l'heure, les Pyrénées françaises ont construit leur stratégie d'attractivité auprès des cibles internationales autour des grands sites, Gavarnie, Cauterets, Pont d'Espagne, le lac des Bouillouzes, qui ont une puissance d'évocation symbolique très forte. Et c'est souvent avec ça qu'on peut attirer les gens. Mais une fois qu'ils sont sur le territoire, tout notre défi est de les amener à faire des pas de côté et à se dire, si le cirque de Gavarnie est complètement saturé au mois d'août, il y a d'autres cirques, le cirque de Troumouse à côté par exemple, qui offre une expérience tout aussi riche, mais qui est un peu moins fréquentée. Et donc arriver à diffuser les flux et ensuite à les réguler en proposant la régulation de la place de la voiture, des systèmes de mobilité avec des navettes électriques, des vélos électriques, et surtout arriver à proposer davantage d'offres touristiques autour de la médiation à l'environnement, avec notamment, se sont développés dans tous les Pyrénées l'été dernier françaises des maraudeurs, c'est-à-dire des jeunes gens qui sont souvent en service civique, qui vont expliquer aux visiteurs à la fois les codes et les usages de la montagne l'été, qui vont faire de l'interprétation du milieu. Ça, ce sont des prestations apportées qui créent une expérience visiteur un peu différente et qui rendent moins douloureux le fait de payer un parking un peu cher, par exemple, ou de devoir réserver à l'avance pour avoir accès aux sites de grande valeur. Deuxième défi qu'on identifie et qu'on essaie d'accompagner, c'est qu'il est important, aujourd'hui il y a une forme de paradoxe, c'est que les clients, entre guillemets, du tourisme durable sont souvent des catégories socio-professionnelles assez aisées, qui ont un fort pouvoir d'achat, et pour autant, quand ils viennent dans les Pyrénées, ils dépensent peu, parce qu'il y a une association d'idées, nature égale pas de consumérisme et donc pas de dépenses. Sauf que si on leur propose, évidemment, ils ne sont pas à la recherche d'un consumérisme classique de parc d'attractions. Par contre, si on leur propose des produits très qualitatifs avec des expériences qu'ils ne vivront qu'une fois dans leur vie, exemple la montée à l'estive avec le berger, exemple la nuit dans des bulles ou des cabanes, là ils sont prêts à payer. Donc comment arriver à partir d'un univers de représentation qui est non consumériste pour arriver à construire des produits qui créent quand même de la valeur, ça c'est un défi important sur lequel nous essayons d'accompagner beaucoup de projets locaux. Troisième défi, c'est évidemment de travailler des offres sans voiture. Et d'ailleurs, c'est un des sujets que nous souhaitons travailler avec l'Andorre à la faveur des trains de nuit Paris, la Tour de Carole. Il faut qu'une fois que les gens descendent du train, des solutions de mobilité, des solutions sans voiture puissent leur être apportées. On est convaincu que le contexte de renchérissement très fort du carburant va obliger les acteurs publics à appuyer sur l'accélérateur sur ce sujet-là. Et puis, comme je le disais tout à l'heure, renforcer la création de valeur autour de l'itinérance est important. Aujourd'hui, l'itinérance, on vend beaucoup la grande itinérance pyrénéenne en termes d'image. Le GR10, la route thermale, la route d'école, ça véhicule un imaginaire des Pyrénées, l'idée d'une traversée de la Méditerranée à l'Atlantique. Mais la pratique, c'est que très peu de visiteurs font de la grande itinérance. Si on veut arriver à créer davantage de valeur autour de ça, il faut simplement davantage structurer d'offres, de circuits, de boucles, avec des packages qui facilitent l'expérience client. Et ça suppose de dépasser à la fois les frontières publiques-privées et les frontières administratives, parce que même si les Pyrénées forment un tout, en France, les logiques de vallée sont encore très, très importantes. Voilà, je ne serai pas plus long, et j'espère ne pas l'avoir été trop.
Thank you very much, Dominique. And Jeremy, that was pretty intense and interesting, wasn't it? And I feel like we're going to close the circle with you because we began with Lee. And now we're going to come back to you. And I honestly really want to thank you as well because of all your efforts as well for the declaration, the UNWTO-led Glasgow Declaration for Climate Action in Tourism. Now, Jeremy, you are the co-founder of Tourism Declares a Climate Emergency in 2020. So once again, we're talking about an initiative, correct me if I'm wrong, that is actually born in COVID times. So let me just kindly ask you, Jeremy, Kate, if you can hear me and talk, it would be really nice to have you on.
I'm here.
Great. I'm sorry we cannot see your face, but I just wanted to ask you one thing. It was really created in 2020, or was it just 2020 was the birth of all your efforts of the years before?
It began in 2019. It followed actually from initiatives declaring a climate emergency outside of our industry and a desire to connect our industry to the communities that were calling to declare a climate emergency. It happened very near where Lee, who spoke first, in the suburb of Darebin, north of Melbourne. That was the first community to declare a climate emergency. And I began thinking that we should follow suit as tourism, as wanting to support our communities. And then in May 2019, Hurricane Kenneth washed in off the Indian Ocean and destroyed a lodge in Mozambique that I had visited and spent an amazing time in several years before. And a decade of work was destroyed in 10 minutes. And it just brought the emergency home. And that, on like a couple of weeks later, I launched the Twitter account and began conversations that also included people from Intrepid and various others. And it was January 2020 that we launched Tourism Declares. At that moment, it was the bushfires in Australia that was the sort of thing that we were thinking, oh my God, how has it come to this? And yeah, 8 weeks after we launched, COVID. I can't hear you, I'm afraid.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Right, well, definitely that is a climate emergency indeed. So I believe you're not going to lead us into how that is actually impacting mountain tourism, correct?
Yeah, I'm going to try not to do how bad. I know it's the end of a long couple of days of talk, and I would like to try to leave us in a sense of hope. We can all do with some hope right now. Thank you, Lee, for talking about the importance of the Glasgow Declaration. Thank you for talking about the importance of Tourism Declares. And I used to always search for an example of why climate is important. Nowadays, I just look at the news, and we are in a situation where we've just seen 50-degree above normal in both poles at the same time. I mean, there could not be a more dramatic thing for those of us talking about wanting to enjoy snow than the idea of it being 50 degrees centigrade warmer than it should be in the Arctic and the Antarctic simultaneously. What I want to talk about is what we do about it. What we do as tourism is this unique, wonderful industry to try to play a positive role as we work into these incredibly challenging decades to come. So we launched Tourism Declares, as we've said, in 2020, and we built regardless of COVID, we continued to build, and we always volunteers, never any external funding. And we now have 419 companies, organizations, destinations that have joined up with us to work on climate action. And the commitment was very simple, that the need to align with what climate science is saying and do what is appropriate, the need to enable that action, and the need to scale that action as rapidly as possible. And the heart of that with Tourism Declares has always been that every organization, every destination needs to have a plan, a climate action plan, as it's called, that lays out who they are, what they're going to do, and then reports transparently on progress. This, over the course of the last year or so, has grown thanks to the work that we've been privileged to do with the UNWTO, the United Nations Environment Programme. We Visit Scotland, that was the first national tourism organisation to join Tourism Declares, and with the Travel Foundation, who I now work with as their climate specialist. And together, over the course of several months, we came together to use the opportunity of COP26 in Glasgow to launch the Glasgow Declaration for a Decade of Climate Action in Tourism, which we did last November. It builds on the same process, the same commitments as tourism declares, that commitment to climate action planning. And yes, it was a great, really powerful moment, a time of tourism turning up to these climate conferences that very often we don't have a huge presence at. But the declaration wasn't the end, it really was the beginning. It was the declaration of a decade of climate action. And the focus for 2022 is very much around enabling that action, around providing the tools, the guidance, the resources that mean that those many companies and organizations that have made those first commitments are supported in taking a brave first step into climate action. And at the moment, I'm also working on 3 projects in Scotland, one in the Highlands, working there with various regional destination management organizations, developing their first climate action plans. Also working with Nextdoor, the European, the network of European regions for competitive and sustainable tourism, and mountain regions such as Vail and Tahoe in the US. There's an awful lot of focus from the mountain regions. It's not just mountain regions, this is just a snapshot of the many destinations, companies, large, small, that are coming together to work on this. I'm not going to take any time, but there are now 517 declared signatories to the Glasgow Declaration across all sectors, across all parts of our industry, destinations, supporting organizations, and businesses. And it's vital that we have this diversity, this complexity, because there is no one-size-fits-all approach. We have to respect and acknowledge and benefit from the differences that we all bring to this. And that in itself, of course, also makes a significant challenge, because if everyone is different and everyone's situation is unique, how are we able to come together and work and share and collaborate? And the way we have come about doing this is through the Glasgow Declaration's what are known as the 5 pathways. Having spent these last 2 years working with many destinations and businesses, seeing what climate action plans they developed, we came together through much collaboration to agree that although everyone's plan is by necessity different, it must share some common values, some common approaches, some 5 pathways, let's say. First is we have to measure. We have to know what it is we are doing, understand our impact, and then understand about the actions we take and whether they are themselves the most impactful. How else will we know whether we are truly 8% or 11% of global climate emissions as a sector? How will we understand if where we are investing our time and our energy is moving us towards that huge, challenging sort of milestone of globally cutting emissions in half by 2030? Of course, therefore, the priority has to be that we have to decarbonize. We have to reduce the actual emissions happening. We have to do everything possible not to make things that much worse than they are already becoming. And if that's the negative, we have to also see the positive. And it's essential. I'm so glad to see that Lee finished with a slide on regenerate, that we have to look to the positive opportunities that tourism brings. And the rest of my talk after this slide is very much going to focus on this, that we have to see how we can regenerate, how we can use our industry to support the restoration of habitat, ecosystems of biodiversity, how we can regenerate and restore communities that have suffered like they haven't done for a very long time over the last few years, how we can reconnect human societies and the ecosystems of which we are part, and how we can help us adapt and become more resilient to the challenges we face. And the way we go about these 3 things, measuring, decarbonizing, and regenerating, is through putting aside competition. We've got to come out of the silos, get away from the firewalls, no more proprietary systems that give us competitive advantage. We have to share. We don't have one company that wins on climate change and the others don't. We all win, or we all lose. So we have to come together and share the challenges and share best practice. And then finally, we have to make sure that that plans turn into action. Yes, a declaration is a great first start, but it's nothing without a plan for how we're going to move forward. But writing a plan is only the second part. Once we've written the plan, worked out what we're going to do, we have to ensure we have the resources, the finance, the human resources. The examples such as Lee gave of that, having an environmental specialist, one of the most vital people, and who has his particular environmental specialist, Dr. Susan Etty, has been instrumental in making everything we've been able to do possible. And I give a heartfelt thanks to her and to Intrepid for the amount of time she has put into committing and helping these things. So, some examples to explain what it is. I want to finish with stories to really hopefully make us see that this is possible. And this isn't just about turning the lights off. The Hohe Tauer National Park outside of Salzburg in Austria. These are the highest area in the whole of Austria. The Krimmel waterfall that you see in the background is the highest waterfall in Austria. But it's also known as being a remarkable restorative force. And so they spent time at this waterfall, researchers, and they measured the waterfall's impact on people spending time there. And they were able to quantify and show that people got healthier, people felt better, that they measured the benefits of leisure in nature. And once they had proven the benefits, it wasn't just hearsay, they're able to say, well, we can focus on developing something here, that Hohe Tauern Health, a sustainable tourism brand for the destination, doesn't talk about sustainable tourism, talks about the impact on ourselves, on our health. Those hotels that do what it needs to get the sustainable tourism brand, that's, using organic food, not having chemicals in the laundry, etc., are able to say that they are now hotels that offer us a better night's sleep, something we're all looking for. And doing this, building a positive form of tourism that engages sustainably across the destination, has seen visitor numbers boost by 21%, bringing in more revenue, coming to walk and to cycle and to relax and to support sustainable tourism, following a multitude of paths through the parks. And it has seen the park flourish. And because the park has flourished, so too have the livelihoods of local people. You benefit sustainable tourism, benefit local people. I'll move a little faster so we have time to get to in some conversations. Astro stays in Ladakh in northwest India. So in the UNWTO's mountain report that they released a couple of months ago. It's a remarkable project built by Global Himalayan Expedition, who have a remarkable tourism concept, which is basically that you pay as a tourist to join an expedition with them to carry and transport solar power to remote off-grid villages, bringing them light, bringing them the ability to see and to work and to, for children to do their homework late into the evening. So they've brought this solar power to this off-grid village in Lake Panon. But having done that, because this remarkable place, it's over 4 kilometers up in the mountains, it's not a lot of pollution up there. They've then worked with the Indian astronomy department to train the villagers, bringing them telescopes to enable them to run unique village-run star tours, giving an incredible, once-in-a-lifetime experience to the tourists who come there. They've trained up a host of families, women across multiple villages to run homestays. All the homestays are solar panels. Having invested in solar panels for homestays, they've also invested in solar greenhouses. There's 15 solar greenhouses there, creating food to help people survive the long, arid winter. Solar water heaters. And what this shows is that it's not just about reducing the impact of tourism. Yes, they're decarbonizing tourism. Yes, they're supporting the village. But what they're doing is helping improve the quality of life. And that ensures that the village, the community, buys into what is happening. It isn't just something being done by the tourist industry. One of the most well-known alpine initiatives, Alpine Pearls, launched in 2006. Now working across 5 countries, 21 villages, 95 hosts. And it's there to bring together all the different parts of tourism, to bring together destinations committed to sustainable tourism, supporting people coming by low carbon transport and connecting them to soft mobility and incredible sustainable experiences. It works, for example, with the Samo card. You basically get a local, when you arrive, you buy a card. If you've come by train or you leave your car in an out-of-town car park so that you are not going to be adding pollution to the resort. That card, like a loyalty card, gives you access to free opportunities while you were there in the resort, to benefit from the buses, from bike hire, from hiking experiences, from gastronomy. It connects it all because all of it matters. We can't just do one bit without doing the whole thing. And by doing this, they've seen huge numbers. Villages in Austria have seen up to 60% growth in tourists since they introduced this initiative. And not just a growth in tourists, but a growth in the number of residents in the area, because there's more opportunity, because there's more money coming in, and because it is sustainable and bringing in encouraging, ethical, decent, high quality services and facilities, it's making for better places to live. So my final example, if you'll forgive me, I'm going to come out of the mountains. I'm going to follow the river down from the mountain, down to my favorite example of them all, which is Suan Sampran on the plains of Thailand, south of Bangkok. And I just want to use it as an example to show just how we bring everything together. And that is what I think our industry is uniquely positioned to do. This hotel manages its own organic farm, providing food to the hotel. So when you eat there, you eat remarkable things. But they use the organic farm to train up hundreds of local farmers. So it's not just the hotel growing its own food, but the region's food supply chain is being transformed as farmers give up pesticides and begin to grow food organically. Of course, hundreds of local farmers create far too much food for one hotel. So they've worked with the hotels, the restaurants, the other businesses in the area to create a guaranteed network of buyers supporting these farmers as they make the transition and helping them ensure that their food will be bought, eaten and enjoyed. They've taken it further into local schools, using those same trainers to train up the schools in how to run their own organic food gardens, improving the quality of food and therefore health in the local schools and the children. All of this makes for a great experience. The guests at the hotel want to see what's happening. They can go, they can check out the farms, visit the gardens, experience it all. If they're not going to go on tours, then the hotel brings it all back together and hosts a weekly farmers market where the region gathers in one place, thanks to tourism, to share the benefits of local, organic, regenerative agriculture and food. And that's really it from me. The key point is to see that throughout the conversations I've been having in the last few months around climate action planning, so often tourism says, we're not in the conversation. People are talking to all the other sectors, but they're not talking to us. And what I think we need to do is to stop seeing ourselves in a silo and being part of these conversations, showing how it is that we can connect food and transport and solar panels and everything, because we have this remarkable opportunity as this industry that connects us all to play a significant role in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. We're seeing the sun coming in your house. What time is it now?
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to sort of...
No, we love that. It's absolutely brilliant at the end of this presentation that you have the ray of sun after your words, sort of marking the importance of it. So that's really interesting. So now I'm left with 10 minutes, which for a person like me is very frustrating because I really want to keep you here and engage you in a conversation. But my duty here is to not only give space to you and to your examples, but also give space to the audience. So first of all, I'm going to look at you if any of you has any question for our esteemed panelists. Yes, we have someone over there. If anybody can reach for the microphone, please make sure you say your name and what you do.
Muy buenas tardes. Soy Juan Ignacio Vecino de la revista Patrimonio Actual, miembro de la UNESCO y de la Asociación de Corresponsales de Prensa Iberoamericana. Después de todo lo que hemos oído aquí, a mí me gustaría saber, dentro de todo lo que es el mundo del patrimonio natural, qué responsabilidades tienen los distintos gobiernos para que no se llegue a un acuerdo y que todo lo que es el medio natural esté dejado y abandonado, porque el cambio climático estamos seguros que es una cuestión que viene porque tenía que suceder, no por la mano del hombre, pero creo que los distintos gobiernos no están haciendo lo suficiente como para tomar las medidas oportunas. Las COP 25, 21, 27 y las que vengan no van a servir para nada porque los mayores contaminantes del mundo no se van a poner nunca de acuerdo. Entonces me gustaría saber cuál es la opinión de los expertos. Gracias.
Thank you very much. What's your name again? ¿Cómo se llamas?
Juan Ignacio Vecino, de la revista
Juan
Patrimonio
Ignacio.
Actual.
Okay, so now, I mean, I'm going to share with you the Spanish press, or in general, it's a very tough press. So they have, this very bold statement type of approach. Juan Ignacio, is there any of the panelists that you would like to address specifically the question to? Any of them? No creo que vamos a tener el tiempo para hacer una opinión complexiva. Si vas a elegir uno, sería perfecto. Vale, so we're looking for a volunteer now. Look, everyone's looking at you, why? Just because maybe you're from France.
Quelques éléments de réponse.
Oui, s'il vous plaît.
Si je comprends bien le sens de la question, c'est pourquoi les gouvernements ne s'accordent pas sur des objectifs plus ambitieux. Je ne serais vraiment pas en mesure de répondre à cette question. Je peux juste témoigner du fait que côté Pyrénées françaises, la question est Pyrénées en général. Le massif des Pyrénées, comme vous le savez, il s'est doté d'une stratégie d'adaptation au changement climatique. Ça fait 10 ans qu'il existe un observatoire pyrénéen du changement climatique et je crois que ça n'existe pas à ce niveau, à un niveau aussi intense dans tous les massifs montagneux d'Europe. Donc il y a une prise de conscience des acteurs publics dans l'observation. Maintenant, tout l'enjeu, c'est de passer à l'action. Et donc, on pousse beaucoup avec Marc et avec d'autres partenaires pour que la stratégie pyrénéenne du changement climatique, maintenant, elle se pose sur les sujets concrets et qu'on travaille notamment très fortement sur l'adaptation de l'économie de montagne aux enjeux du changement climatique, qu'on essaye de voir en quoi le changement climatique impacte toutes les chaînes de valeur, comment on peut reconstruire ces chaînes de valeur au regard du changement climatique. Les sujets sont vraiment là et je crois qu'il ne faut pas forcément attendre des COP internationales qu'elles nous apportent les solutions. On a des leviers d'action à l'échelle locale pour se remonter les manches.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I would like to add something that at the end of the day, I, for example, do not personally completely agree with the assumption that this is not the climate change has, and if I understood correctly, said men has nothing to do with the climate change. I think what we're doing here is exactly the opposite, that we are looking for collective action, starting from an awareness moment to gathering all the forces together to making sure that people talk, as Domitien was mentioning, definitely not waiting just for a COP once a year, but doing that on a regular basis to include communities and consumers into the discussion, in order to avoid that we reach a crisis moment, because we don't need to wait for a big crisis to find solutions. Look at the war in Ukraine. We didn't need to get here to find, to look for and achieve certain type of objectives. We didn't need to wait, I presume, Jeremy, for the big disasters to happen all over the world, whether it's the fires in Australia or anywhere, to have that kind of awakening. Definitely, this is a big call for all of us. Now, I would like to, if I may, I would like to turn back to the audience if there's any other questions here that, yes, we have a young lady there, if I am correct. I don't see so.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi there, this is Céline. I was moderating the panel a little bit earlier. I am from ATTA. I would like to say I'm really pleased to see Jeremy from Tourism Declares and Lee from Intrepid here today. They are part of our community as well. And we are actually signatories of Tourism Declares Climate Emergency, and we are working on our climate action plan at the moment. So this is very exciting to hear more about that. I'm so impressed, Lee, that you flew all the way from Australia. I think the borders only reopened about 3 weeks ago. What I wanted to ask is more about the certification, because in our community, especially a group of ambassadors, this is a question that is raised regularly. As you said, there are so many different types of certification and options. I know that B Corp is the hardest to obtain. Travel Life is one that seems to be coming up a lot. And I'm wondering if perhaps you could tell me a little bit more about the specificities of B Corp, and why you decided to go for this one, if that's okay. Thanks.
Is that on? You guys hear me?
No, I think you're gonna.
You're good now? Yeah,
Yes.
cool. Sorry about
Perfect.
that. Yeah, why B Corp? We wanted one. Yeah, so the thing was there was so many certifications, and we found they all did just a little bit. Yeah, so it was good for something here for flights, something here for hotels, something here for experiences. And in the end, we ended up looking like a Formula One racing car with certifications all over us. So why we went for B Corp was the fact that it was a holistic business. You know, you're the best for the people, the planet, your stakeholders, your governance. So it was a full component across the whole business. So not necessarily tourism. And why we liked it is it went across just from not just focusing on one particular aspect, it gave us a broad spectrum of every facet of our business. I sort of like to talk to it like it's a non-financial audit for your business. It helps you find out what you need to do better. It gives you a score to say this is where you are. You need to get over 80. Our first score was 82. We've now gone over 90. But where the real nuggets of gold was this area here is where you need to get better. So we found out that our contracting with women on the ground was normally done with the male because they were the lead in the family. Now that seems normal, right? Something that you should be doing. Or it seemed normal in the communities, we didn't know. But once B Corp said, hey, this isn't right, we actually spoke to the women that were running the businesses. They weren't able to control the business. The husband was able to keep the money. They didn't have control of the business, where the money went, how often they worked, how hard they worked, when they could have that life balance. And it was quite an awakening moment for us. Here we are saying we're a responsible business, and we had that inflection moment to say, hey, we need to change that. The contract should actually be with the person running the business, and that's the woman. Yeah, and from that, we're able to make hundreds of little changes like this across our whole supply chain to make us a better organisation. So, yeah, why I think B Corp is the best, it's holistic. It doesn't just go deep into one. You can do other things, you'll need to do more, but it focuses it on where you need to get better and then gives you tangible ways to do that. Yeah, so it's not just a certification, it actually helps you run your business, and that's why we've liked it, because we keep on every time we certify, have to look at ourselves as an organisation, have to pull up our socks and get better. So that's why we go down the path of B Corp. And then also now what's happening, there's a movement of companies that are becoming B Corps, and it stands for something, and consumers are now saying, hey, I want to book or travel or consume the product because you're doing the right thing.
Thank you very much. Yeah, certification is an interesting tool. Definitely. There was a need that came much stronger, I think, during COVID. I mean, when destinations started to reopen, that certification was also part of the communication. How do we communicate their destination is safe, for example? But at UNWTO, I mean, we have a lot of intelligence. We say we're very intelligent, but we have a lot of intelligence there, and we produce a lot of reports. And one of the reports was the one on basically on the reopening of, we were monitoring all the destinations and how close and open they were throughout the time. And what we realized is there was at some point a mathematical correlation between those destinations that had undertaken sustainable initiatives and had really implemented sustainable policies, and the way that they were able to reopen a little bit faster than the others, because maybe they had a more organic approach. And to take it from Domitien, they probably were not focusing, they were already thinking about how to manage, and so on the experience rather than the attractive. We sometimes like to call it quantity abandoned versus quality, for example. And definitely that, I mean, we have more and more proofs that sustainability, when it's real, it really brings like positive effects. But I would say definitely in the medium to long term. So you have to be a little bit of a visionary and not look at the immediate break even if you really have to do that. So my question to you is, how much do you think that consumers can be part of the conversation and, for example, be able to spend that 10% more once they know that the destination, for example, has all the pluses that Jeremy was showing us with the different examples? Or how much do you think sustainability can be perceived as really something that would also justify, let's say, the investment from the provider point of view? I would like to, if possible, address this question to all of you. See, Mark.
Yeah, so was a little bit I started, no? So far, sustainability was like a plus. And right now is, for example, from the consumer side, is more and more a factor to consider. So we're starting to see some niche that they have filters, and the sustainability performance of one destination is something they look for before the decisions. I think that right now there is this convergence, maybe that so far there was not, so in both the demand and the supply side, and more we have both sides that they are converging in this, and this is one of the key elements that the recent years, some before the pandemic and more and more after that we can see that's going. See, and this is one thing that when you don't have the pressure of the demand, it's more struggling to change. But when we have this that it's happening, is that we have seen that many industries and many businesses, they are starting because there is this niche of opportunity, and there are many that they are pivoting to that because they are trying to be the first that they attract this niche of opportunity, of course.
So it's becoming more and more even a motivation to travel. So I would pick Andorra because Andorra has tangible, sustainable practices in place that make me feel better when I travel. Is that
Even
what you're telling us?
In millennials is one of the things that we've seen. They look for, they are more committed. This is one thing that when they are traveling, they look at this performance when they choose their destinations, and this is more and more often. And I think that the businesses they are aware, and this is one of the reasons they are turning faster than some years ago.
Fantastic. And Domitien, what do you think? I mean, does your experience cost more, or how do you?
Moi, je suis convaincu que les gens sont prêts à payer un peu plus si, pour eux, si on leur donne une dimension concrète de ce que veut dire durable. Et la première dimension concrète, c'est ma dépense touristique fait vivre des gens à l'année sur un territoire. Je suis prêt à payer un peu plus si le fromage qu'on va me servir, par exemple, je sais qu'il fait vivre un éleveur des Pyrénées et que grâce à ça, je contribue à maintenir une école dans une vallée. Ça, c'est très porteur de sens. Voilà. Si c'est payé 10% pour une version durable, greenwashing, avec des labels uniquement sur les matières écolo ou bio, je pense que c'est une motivation qui ne suffit pas. Voilà, c'est l'implication, l'impact citoyen de sa consommation sur le fait qu'on va faire vivre des habitants du territoire et maintenir des activités traditionnelles. Ça a un sens très fort, je crois, pour le consommateur.
Fantastic. So communities, definitely. When we're talking about building experiences, you have to include them. People, communities. So there's also an interesting side, let's say, of the potential markup, which is you're actually giving back to that community to allow it to grow better, for example. But I mean, how do you see that from your perspective, Lee?
Look, I think communities, we need a social license to operate, yeah? If the communities don't want us there, how do we have a tourism product? Yeah, I think the important thing is what we're focusing on, what I hope a lot of other companies or destinations are looking on, make it a better place to live, and people want to come there. Yeah, and I think that's been a big shift that I've seen probably over the last 10 years in my role. Seeing at conferences, they're not talking about how they market a destination better. They're talking about how do we spend money to make this place better. One example recently I was reading about was in Victoria in Canada. They're not advertising, they're spending money on feeding the killer whales, the orcas, to ensure the healthy population, because that's what people come and see. Yeah, and the community wants to have a healthy orca population. So that you've got to have that social license to operate. You need to have engagement with the communities, and they want you to come there. I don't know if that's me banging away there, sorry. But yeah, you want to have those communities wanting you to come there, making it a better place to live. And that's where the magic, I think, of tourism is. And we know it's not so much about being able to charge the consumer more. If they're going on an experience where the product is better, because you've listened to them, you've made it a better place to live, the community wants you there, that customer then tells 10 friends, they then come to do it, so you get better retention, more people come, that customer travels with you or goes to you again and again. So that community piece is not spoken about enough, I think, from a sustainability point of view, but it's really important, because if they want you there, you get a better experience.
That is absolutely true, and especially true when we talk about mountains, because mountains probably have proven to be a 12-month destination more and more. So if we're talking about the, let's say, we like to call it the pre-COVID strategies, which is, for example, like fight over tourism, something that definitely we're not experiencing so much right now, but also include the communities inside of your strategies, that is absolutely fundamental. Or, for example, diversify and enlarge your period, right? So this is all part of it. And once again, we're talking about not looking at your 1 month, 3 months break even, but just looking a little bit further. Jeremy, how do you think and how difficult it was for you, for example, when you were raising awareness with your campaign, to convince people to actually, I'm talking about people of the industry, I'm talking about tour operators, I'm talking about people that really obviously have to look at their break even, but also the SMEs, the ones that compose the majority of the tourism sector, entrepreneurial, let's say, materia. How was it difficult to convince it, if it was, by any point, to say, hey, look, for a minute, let's give it up, let's think of what's going to happen in 3 to 5 years?
It's incredibly difficult, and there's no point pretending. I mean, we'd like to present, to go, 400 signatories and make it sound like a big number, but there's, millions of organizations working in tourism across the world. So 400 isn't even a drop in the ocean. It's a great, great start, and it's some great momentum that has been built. I think that, the word Lee used there is the word, I've been working in sustainable communication even before I came into tourism for over 20 years, and we've been having these conversations about how do we engage with people, how do we persuade people, always, and we continue to have them, and things continue to get worse outside the back door. But the key word that Lee said there is better, and yes, better places to live, but also better experiences, better food, better places to sleep. We lose people in the jargon of sustainability. If you happen to be part of a gang, you like to talk about all the sort of keywords that make you feel very knowledgeable. But if you're not part of the gang, then they're an obstruction and they stop you feeling part of it. But everyone wants to go on a better holiday. Everyone wants to have new experiences, to relax, to feel that they are, as Lee said, welcomed by the community, that the hoteliers are delighted that they come into their hotel rather than tired and jaded because they're underpaid and undertrained. The key is not, of course the key is sustainability, but we have to look at it not in terms of the language, but in terms of the deeper values that we're talking about, which is a better holiday, more closely connected to the places we've gone to visit, and with more rewarding experiences as a result.
Thank you very much. You're absolutely right. Better. So it looks like we are better 12 minutes ahead of, we're over our given time, but this really proves that this is a very, very interesting discussion. And I'm sure the audience have gone crazy listening to all your fantastic presentations. I personally, Jeremy, would love to go to that place in Thailand that you mentioned. But I don't know when and how. We have to check now. I'm waiting for all the borders to actually swiftly reopen. It's another element where UNWTO is actively working on, with our Secretary General leading it. So I just want to take advantage of the kindness of the mountain tourism organizers and just ask the audience if there's any final question. Otherwise, we'll just wrap it up. Anybody? All right. Okay, looks like, once again, I completely agree with you, Jeremy. 400 is a great number, but definitely has to be a beginning. We want more and more zeros after it. So I wish all of you the best of luck. Thank you very much. It was an honor for me to moderate you in this panel. And really looking forward. Thank you very much, Andorra.